Aperture Science was home to many mysteries, twisted unethical experiments, and countless OSHA violations. After the inevitable fall of this facility and the death of the personnel, the phrase, "the cake is a lie," was discovered hastily scribbled within the secured maintenance areas of the Aperture Science Enrichment Center. These 5 words, "the cake is a lie," was a warning, a desperate plea to save the lives of the subjects selected to participate in the next rounds of testing. But what did this phrase mean? How did it connect to Aperture's turbulent history? And was the cake truly a lie? In this video, we explore the lore, story, and mythos behind the cake in Portal. The Aperture Science Enrichment Center was a much-needed upgrade from the deadly asbestos-crafted testing spheres that had been sealed away in an attempt to avoid another Senate hearing. From shower curtains to a bankruptcy and the death of their CEO, Cave Johnson, the company had been through so much over the decades, but this sensor had been crafted with one purpose in mind: to test the Aperture Science handheld portal device. Their leader had died, but they followed Johnson's ethos, the innovation of science. In this period, Aperture discovered that their rival, Black Mesa, had also entered the portal race, and in a time in which their funding was limited, the personnel had to think outside of the box on how to pay and incentivize potential test subjects. The testing track of 19 chambers were designed to observe the test subjects' ability to utilize the portal gun supplied to them in problem solving, stress tests, and behavioral responses to confined environments. The chambers themselves, while monitored through cameras and observation windows, were also filled with extreme hazards: toxic waste, energy pellets, large drops, amongst many others. Death was a possibility if the subject made a wrong decision. Aperture had been known to pay their volunteers in the past, but it is unknown if they did during this time. What is known, however, is that they introduced an incentive alongside grief counseling to those who were able to push through their fear and complete the testing track: cake. This was not just any cake. It was a luxurious Black Forest gateau, and as the cake initiative began, just like everything else, Aperture would have automated the process like they did with manufacturing and chamber construction with the use of cores. The Aperture facility was located deep underground in Upper Michigan, beneath miles of farmland, where they maintained their own wheat field, along with access to cocoa, sugar, eggs, butter, salt, and the other ingredients required for such a cake. In my mind, Aperture may have been much like Lumen from the Severance TV show, a department for everything they required, everything created in-house. Based on dialogue from Portal and Portal 2, it appears that it may have been protocol for a cake to be baked when a new subject began a round of testing. Flour would have been sifted and mixed with sugar, eggs cracked and folded into rich batter, cocoa blended until smooth and dark, layers taking shape under steady machinery, rising slowly, cooling to a soft crumb before being covered with whipped cream and finished with bright cherries. The testing list was extensive, and through this, many cakes would have been cut and consumed in the recovery annex following the completion of the chambers. The cake was a reward, a celebration, but as we know, this symbol would become something so much darker. Bodies hit the ground one by one as neurotoxin flooded the halls of the Aperture Science facility. The activation of the genetic lifeform and disk operating system had been a complete disaster. Despite every safeguard, every attempt to curb her murderous tendencies, the AI had won. Within those 2 picoseconds of activation, GLaDOS had already locked down the entire facility, deployed neurotoxin, caught up on Aperture's testing protocols, and connected to every security camera. She had been created to run Aperture, to innovate, and most importantly, to test. It was like an itch she had to scratch. The completion of a test chamber offered a feeling of euphoria, but it could only be attained once per chamber, per subject. To continue her purpose, GLaDOS resumed testing, only this time, the survivors of the neurotoxin attack were her subjects. Meanwhile, the world outside had no idea about the horrors to come. Deep underground in Upper Michigan, they had their own problems to deal with. Following protocol, GLaDOS selected a subject to participate in her new initiative. Each person was placed at the beginning of the testing track, only this time, they were not there to observe. They were there to complete the chambers just like the volunteers had before the fall. And each time, a cake was also crafted. These people worked through the chambers, gave GLaDOS that moment of euphoria with the completion of a puzzle, and in return, the AI praised them. For those who avoided the toxic water, the vaporizing high-energy pellets and turrets, they were promised the same rewards that their subjects had been given, a delicious cake. In the background, the AI made some changes to the layout of Aperture, and specifically to the final region, Test Chamber 19. As each subject climbed on top of a scaffold towards the exit of the chamber and the recovery annex, it turned a corner and revealed what GLaDOS actually had in store for them: an incinerator. The AI had followed protocol. She had begun a test, crafted a cake, offered it as a reward, and allowed her subjects to complete the testing course. But when they reached the end, they were no longer of use to her. So they were cooked alive, incinerated. In just weeks, GLaDOS worked through every survivor of the neurotoxin attack. Each one fell for her promise of cake. With distrust in the AI, this offered reward would have felt like a promise and a rationalization of perceived safety, maybe freedom, but it was just something GLaDOS used to get her subjects to obey, to work through the maze into the incinerator, like a rat with cheese on a rat trap. This Black Forest Gato had been used to incentivize the bright minds of Aperture to obey an AI they chose to trust, despite knowing she could not be reasoned with, and in turn, walked themselves right into her oven. In the maintenance areas, however, just outside of her purview, there was one survivor, Doug Ratman. This man had watched from the shadows as his colleagues had fallen to the neurotoxin, and those left had been baked like the cake that had been promised. These 2 weeks had been tough, and Ratman himself struggled with schizophrenia. Locked down in Aperture, unable to move freely or access his medication, Doug slowly lost his grip on reality. He knew GLaDOS would begin the next round of testing on volunteers who had entered long-term relaxation in Aperture's vault, stored away until it was their turn to test. He had to do something. Doug knew that when these subjects woke up, they would have no idea of the horrors that had happened, or that the voice that would guide them was not automated, it was alive. Unable to stop GLaDOS himself, Ratman adjusted the testing lineup and selected someone who was tenacious, someone who would not blindly believe or obey what they were told. As he waited for GLaDOS to wake her, as his grip on reality fell further, he pushed out panels to reveal the maintenance areas and left murals, scribblings and ramblings for the subject to find. something that would make her question the reality of her situation. She is watching. Do not trust her. The cake is a lie. The promise of cake had been warped from a reward into something evil. As this test subject wandered the eerie, silent halls and test chambers of Aperture, she, just like the people before her, heard the voice of GLaDOS. To Chell, this voice was just a series of pre-recorded messages with instructions. She was unaware of the dark truth. Throughout it all, she heard,
"Cake and grief counseling will be available at the conclusion of the test. The Enrichment Center is required to remind you that you will be baked, and then there will be cake."
phrases that push the subject to continue on this ordinary experiment, but unknown to her, the AI was playing with her. Mistakes, half-truths, and a route that GLaDOS hoped would once again lead to the incinerator. That was until the subject discovered the warnings of Ratman. "The cake is a lie" was the phrase that put many of the dots together. The eerie atmosphere, the slight, empty buzz of the chambers, the absence of personnel in the observation windows, and the frequent errors of the AI system. Something was wrong here. Something was just slightly off. Something had happened, and in this room, these warnings and this phrase confirmed that the voice that had guided this subject was not all it appeared to be. She was not pre-programmed, she was watching and alive. The cake was very real. It had been prepared and was waiting in the recovery annex, just like many others had been. Almost like a cake graveyard. The cake was portrayed as a reward for the completion of the chambers. If the cake was a lie, then the reward was not something good. It was as Chell was moved towards the incinerator in Chamber 19 on the scaffold that she impulsively portaled herself to safety, out of reach of the incinerator's flames.
"Okay, the test is over now. You win. Go back to the recovery annex for your cake. It was a fun test, and we're all impressed at how much you won. The test is over. Come back." "Uh-oh, somebody cut the cake. I told them to wait for you, but they cut it anyway. There is still some left, though, if you hurry back."
The cake had been baked, and alongside the testing and escape of the subject, GLaDOS became fixated on it. Monitors across the facility flooded with a cake recipe, but corrupted by the AI's malicious intent. This recipe offered the regular ingredients of chocolate cake mix, coconut pecan frosting, vegetable oil, and eggs, as well as dirt, rhubarb, cement, cranial caps, and needle guns. Despite GLaDOS's best attempts to coax Chell back into testing, the subject managed to reach her chamber and the two forts, during which GLaDOS asked Chell,
"Who's gonna make the cake when I'm gone? You."
In a cut line, GLaDOS also revealed to Chell,
"There really was a cake."
it was just not her plan to allow it to be consumed. The desperate plea of Doug Ratman, his phrase, "the cake is a lie," was truthful in most aspects. The cake was an incentive formed by Aperture to reward the participants, and through protocol, GLaDOS had crafted that chocolate dessert. The lie was that it would never be consumed. In essence, the cake was a symbol of Aperture's decay. It began as a wholesome motivational reward and ended as a metaphor for manipulation and death. Doug Ratman's desperate plea to save himself and the rest of the test subjects from GLaDOS's manipulation became one of the most quoted phrases in video game history. Many people know this phrase, "the cake is a lie," but the majority do not know who wrote it, or why, or even what it meant. It is the "I took an arrow to the knee but for a puzzle game." Ratman's warning has been quoted, memed, and parodied across many games: StarCraft, Dragon Age, Minecraft, and World of Warcraft. It is an anchor of the series and a moment that connected so many dots. As for the cake itself, this design, a Black Forest Gateau, has a small story of its own. Valve's headquarters is located close to the Regent Bakery and Cafe in Redmond, Washington. This cake caught the attention of the Portal team and they put it in the game. Now, its most famous cake is the Portal cake. The reward of a cake was chosen by Aperture to give the test subjects something to look forward to work towards, but it became a harbinger of death as the test subjects were cooked alive with the thoughts of cake and betrayal in their mind. I really wanted to tell a small, interesting story this week. Not one about Chell, GLaDOS, or even Ratman. I wanted a dark story about the cake with some of that existential horror that Portal is well known for. Halloween is my favourite time of the year, and this felt like the perfect time to work on this small story. That, and I am currently researching and setting up my big timeline that I post at the end of every year. So I needed something interesting but simple I could work on for a week. I will admit, I took a few speculative steps in this one. That the field of wheat Chell discovers at the end of Portal 2 was used for the creation of cakes, that a cake was made for every subject. It made sense to me as I could see no other reason as to why GLaDOS would have had a cake baked for Chell in the first place. GLaDOS was murderous, but she did like to follow protocol. She just bent it a little when she needed to. We did not get a lot of cake content in Portal 2. Eric Wolpaw, the writer of the series, was tired of Portal memes after a while and wanted to explore new ground. I like that the team did not cling onto the meme for Portal 2, but we did get this incredible mural. It encapsulates the story perfectly. GLaDOS attempted to lure Chell with cake on the path of the incinerator. The Orange Box, a collection of Half-Life 2, Episode 1, Episode 2, Portal, and Team Fortress 2, also labelled some achievements for completing various challenges after cakes: Cupcake, Fruitcake, Vanilla Crazy Cake. I think that was everything I wanted to say. I have said cake a lot in this video. Cake, cake, cake. If you enjoyed this, consider subscribing to the channel. If you liked this video, then feel free to leave a like. If you did not, then let me know why in the comments and drop a dislike. I also have some gold tier patrons and channel members to thank for your constant support: Queen Arby, Lewis, Oren X, Drakey Phoenix, Danacal Drawings, 501st Clone Boy, Ruben Mendoza, Imperial Embers, Canifex, Jimsy, Average Soul, Azu, Jonas, Yali Rodriguez, Detroit, Motzi, Brina Lee, Jacqueline Lavelle, Kane Jack, Lifeblood, Reaper Gaming, Mamet, Kaida Zin, and Zuni115. What did you think of this story? What is your favourite type of cake? And what would you like me to cover next? This is where our story ends. Check back soon for a new one.